Welcome back to another episode for the Mr. Bray Labs stream. Today we're not going to be talking about Inklings, well, at least not, and for the most part. I'm going to mention a couple of things that relate to Inklings. So starting next week, we will just be talking about Season 0. So hopefully we'll be getting callbacks locked in. There's a lot of them, but really we're just going to be talking about Season 0. So really today I want to talk about the process of developing an explainer video. And what are explainer videos? Explainer videos are just explanation videos. And one of the projects that I'm going to be working on specifically for this stream is going to be an explainer video that I'm developing for a tool I developed called Arty. So I'm going to post this online for those who kind of are interested in sort of the process. But this is a shorter video because it really just kind of covers the fun creative process. I've written a script, and when I write scripts for explainer videos, I do them a little different when they're like for commercial products versus for normal narrative products. And I'll probably take a time to kind of show how that works, maybe at another point. But what you do is you really want to kind of break them down when you create an explainer video into 3 points: a problem, solution, and call to action. So what I have done here in this particular video is that I've written a 7 part or 7 scene script based upon my tool that I built called Arty. And the reason why I'm also just like kind of breaking this down is because the format of this YouTube channel has been sort of behind the scenes. So really, I just want to kind of give you an idea. So I created a script about Arty and just going to tell you what Arty is. Arty is an AI bot. When I say bot, probably loosely because I have nuanced opinions about what makes something truly a bot. But so it's a searching tool that searches video. And I broke it down into 7 scenes. In this particular video, I'm just gonna walk through a tool I'm using on my iPad. And I want to show you that you can actually build this stuff out. If you have any sort of tool, it doesn't really matter what tools. Some of them are a little more smooth. If you're working in a team or if you're working like putting your nose to the grindstone, you can actually get quite a bit of stuff done. But you're going to see that I'm going to churn out 2 scenes in this short 20-minute episode. Now, I did write the script before we got together, so you're going to see a little bit different of that. But I'm going to just kind of tell you real quick as you're kind of breaking this down, what you're seeing may not line up specifically with um, the script, but it's just sort of tell you the process. So I figured, okay, I want people to take a chance to look at this tool. Well, I'm an animator, so one of the best ways to do that is to visually. What I want to do is really want to break this down to really no less than 30 seconds. So the completed project will be a 30-second animated film. So you are not looking at the completed product, you're looking at the behind the scene product. So as I'm building this explainer video, it's a slight detour from Inklings. If you've been paying attention to the stream, it's not really an unnecessary detour because it's actually going to relate to every single bit of the process for season 0. We'll be doing a very similar process of breaking it all down from scripts to really to full episodes. And then of course we'll be doing a lot of other fun stuff. But so I break the script down into, when it comes to an explainer, is to a problem, a solution, and a call to action. And so when you're building a script, you need to have a really clear idea of what the problem is. And the problem, the problem for what Arty solves, which I will be reading in just a moment, um, it needs to be clear. So in order for you to kind of catch someone's attention, we've talked this in the past, you need, action, question, danger. Then you want to have emotional hooks. You want people to care. So there's an art to it. But as we're doing this super fast, it might feel like there is an art to it, as if I'm just like completely just I breathe this stuff, and no one really does. Even people who are far more talented than myself have been working a really long time at this process. So you want to have a clear problem, and the problem here is that currently believe that search is slow. Search is slow and it's clumsy, and I tell you from my experience, it is. It is. I actually, small story. When I was first introduced to the internet, I think it was back in 1996. My stepmother, she was the one who had the computer, and it was in my dad and my stepmom's room, and she was setting up this Windows something or another. I think it was Windows 95 or whatever. And I remember she was playing with different sound effects. and she had it sort of the computer turned on, it had different sounds and would turn when would do different things, and she had like a little screens savers and such like that. And so as I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. And I know I had not played with the internet. I had played with computers, but I'd never played with the internet. And I remember sitting there, and it's like, okay, so we're on the internet. What can we find? And this is probably something that you have to be much older to relate to. And so maybe this is what makes me unique for this. But I remember sitting there on the browsers, and I cannot remember which search engine we were looking at, but I remember all sorts of ones that no longer exist anymore. I mean, for example, Lycos was one, Alta Vista was one, Jeeves, Ask Jeeves was one, Netscape, all sorts of different. You just don't see them anymore. They're gone. They've all lost to Google, and there's still Yahoo has been around. It's luckily held on for a long time, but it's not really the king of search. We all know that Google is the king of search, though I think that Microsoft is the first search engine really giving it a run for its money, and it's also the one that I'm betting on personally because I think it has the potential to kind of give Google a run for its money. But anyways, so I remember there sitting there, and I was just I really disliked searching. I didn't know how to search. I would type in, like maybe I'm looking for a comic book or a piece of artwork or some sort of interesting fact, and nothing would come up, and nothing would come up, and nothing would come up. And I don't know if this is a world that most people who are under the age of 35 um, have experienced. And I'm dating myself, but I'm just saying this. I don't know truly if this problem is a problem to other people, but it's been a problem for me, and it's been a problem that I've always struggled with. Like, you can go online and you can search for anything, and you'll get a result, even if it's wildly bonkers, not even close to what you're looking for. But I remember query after query after query typing in and getting nothing in return. And and so, which is a funny thing because when I started building this arty chatbot, it started off as a chatbot and later on became this something else as it evolved. I noticed that, my goodness, um, it's not turning back the results I want. It's not giving back the queries. What's going on? And so I had to troubleshoot and to teach it how to speak and think. And when you're thinking on that matters, like if you don't really understand a problem, your solution is never going to work. Your solution is never going to work unless you truly, truly, truly understand the problem. And I can emotionally, I can, draw back from those experiences when I got on the web, and there was this sort of wonder and awe. And then you know what I thought after the end of that? I was like, I'll just go to the library. I would just go to the library. No sense, because the internet is not useful to me. And I mean that, I'm seriously, that is what I thought when I was first introduced to the internet. There was all this potential, but to me, the internet was it was not accessible to me. I did not see um, really the value that everyone else sees. Everyone takes for granted now all the wonderful things you can do on the internet, apps you can engage with, and stuff like that. So this is really kind of drove me nuts. It absolutely drove me nuts that the internet itself was just a big black hole of confusion to me. Now, it evolved. My goodness, it evolved drastically. By the time I graduated high school in 2000, it had become a whole other entity. The internet had become alive, but it it still was slowly moving that way. Where it really took interest to me was maybe when Yahoo Music was fascinating, but altogether, I've never really been happy. And so here I am. I'm not a spring chicken. I've never been happy with search. I've never been happy with the way that people look online for how we find content. I've always been sort of just settled. And and I'd say that that's probably something that I did not realize it was the thing that bothered me. But I think we all have a certain level of disappointment when we look at a problem. My wife, she is the queen when it comes to going out to a restaurant, and she could sit there and we can go to a nice restaurant or whatever, and she'll tell me what she likes about it and tell me what she feels like missed the mark. And so I'm not good at that. I am not good. I'm not a discriminative person when it comes to food. And there are certain things I can tell you if it's good or bad, but I can't really. I like maybe it's burnt, but I cannot sit there and pull apart all the different components and saying, oh, this particular citrus doesn't pair well with this, dairy thing. I really could not. I don't have the vocabulary for it. I don't have the palate for it, but I do have an emotional vocabulary for how I feel about the problem of search. and that the internet is confusing. I actually found libraries to be drastically far more superior than the internet. For quite some time, I actually preferred libraries because there is a wonder, there's a mystery. If I was going to go through and like randomly grab a piece of information, I'll tell you what, if you go to a library and you put your hand through a bookshelf and just pull out a random book, you're definitely not going to find an inappropriate content. You're definitely not going to find something that's just wildly, completely left field. And you're not going to find anything that wasn't purposely put on the shelf by some sort of vetted creative or author. And so that's one thing about the libraries. It's safe. It's safe. It was safe in the sense that you could go and you could find content that's going to be useful, like always useful. Now the internet can be very, very useful, and this is silly because I'm obviously sharing this information here on the internet. But what made Artie so fascinating to me when I started to build them was that I'm working on my doctorate. And when you're working on doctoral research, you have to do things like search really, really big, dusty old databases. And these databases are they're legitimate. They're as deeply legitimate as you can possibly imagine. And what I mean is like if you have trouble believing headlines, well, this is where you can start changing your mind because in a scholarly research you have all these different rules that don't fly in academic world like you have like for example scholarly research, you cannot go and say, "Oh, well, I quote a Twitter post or I quote a Facebook post." Like that's not scholarly. That is just hearsay. It's not considered legitimate research or insights. Maybe anecdotal at best, so people's personal opinions, but it doesn't really. It's not really true. There's no way to prove that it's true, that it's legitimate. And even things that are considered legitimate research are still not considered honestly, without with being bulletproof. And so research itself, it stinks. It totally stinks. And so because it stinks, and because I think this and much of the world was all sort of just settled on that, search stinks. It stinks. It doesn't really have to be accountable to the truth. It doesn't have to be accountable to what we really are looking for. And I really do believe that people are looking for the truth. Um, Perhaps we've settled for being entertained, but I think people are looking for the truth. We want to connect with others, absolutely. There's a quest for it. But ultimately, bigger than the quest is a massive um, sea of boredom. To quote Bishop Barron, but the person who lives the ambiguous relativism ends up just becoming bored, sitting on a bunch of air mattresses without any meaning for existence. Now, that is heavy, heavy theological and, I say existential insights that only a true theologian like Bishop Barron can give. But how it relates to a search engine, people should search for the truth, and that should be your quest. A journalist should search for the truth. So yes, these are big sort of problems that I have inside that kind of give me sort of knots. Like I want to know the truth. I don't want to know what I want. Like I don't want to know what I'm telling you. I want to know. I want to know the truth, and and so that's why I've often been bored with search. It's basically okay. What can help me for the moment, but ultimately, it's never going to like elevate me. And so this is when I started to get really frustrated. Here, we're talking 20 plus years later. I'm working on my doctoral research. I'm looking into these studies, and I'm finding it really difficult to access this information because this information is dense and it's dense. Now, here's the opposite. What I used to have is I couldn't find any queries. So when I first approached the internet, I'm on the internet and I don't know what is going on. I have no clue what's going on. And here I am like, oh goodness, I don't know what's happening. So there's just, it's cat videos or this or that. It becomes random. It becomes sort of like this, like a sugar rush of kind of without any sort of substance behind it. And that in itself is quite frustrating. But then now here I am, I'm in my doctoral studies, and everything is thick, everything is rich, everything has meaning to it. It's just knowing how to access that meaning. So it's the craziest thing ever. It's almost like, in one way, I was in like a desert, and now I'm in this rich oasis, but my hands are tied. And so this is part of the innovation of how I came together with Artie. Now, in this particular, walkthrough, I'm going to show you. I broke it into 7 scenes, and I'm doing this just really kind of give you some ambient background video of the script that I've built, and we're going to do an actual reading another time. But I'm going to do the reading while I'm going to start cross-pollinating my content so that you kind of see what I do. That Inklings is happening, it's coming alive, but also I'm building this short 30-second animation and how it's going to relate to a lot of the shorts that we're going to be putting out with Inklings. So, so anyways, that said, you know, when we ask you this question, you have to understand your problem. If you're trying to solve a problem, you really need to deeply understand it, and more than just on an emotional lens. You have to understand it deeply to the sense like, are you really solving a problem? Or are you just trying to like line your pockets or just move forward in your agenda? And this is something that happens often in the tech world. A lot of people create innovative ideas that they are truly innovative, but they don't really solve anything. They don't solve a problem. And uh, and so they maybe just kind of like add more to the pile, and that is in itself is not necessarily evil. It's just it's not really making the world a better place, and that is, I think, aspirational for everyone in every industry. Is how can we make the world a better place? I think to truly make the world a better place, you have to start from really understanding the problem. And so I leave you with this thought here is that as we're trying to build things, as I'm trying to give you insights to the creative process, ask yourself deeply, what is the problem that you want to solve? Do you have a problem you're trying to solve? If it's not, it's just I want to share myself, well, then that doesn't mean you don't have a problem. The problem is that you want to feel connected. And so you have to ask yourself, how is it that you do not feel connected? And what sort of connections can be made through sharing your art? And if you can truly say why that's a problem of not feeling connected, and it's more than just a surface emotional feeling, maybe it's deeper, uh, ask yourself deeply what it is that you're trying to solve. Understand your problem. And so with Artie, Artie looks to solve a huge problem of search. And honestly, it's just that's really what I've often considered myself, not really a storyteller, but a problem solver. And because the problem is that I want people to connect to things that matter. And I have to think deeply about what matters. And I have to think deeply about why what I do is a unique offering to other people. So I thank you all for listening. I thank you all for being part of this shorter episode. Again, we have changed the cadence to we're no longer going to be meeting on 3 times a week. We're just meeting Mondays and Fridays, and we're going to just check in. And if it's a fruitful week, especially, we're going to start adding more content throughout the week. But ultimately, I'm trying to have a more healthy cadence so I can be more present with my family. So I thank you so much as well for being a part of this community. If you could you please just like and subscribe? That really helps our community grow and gets us out there. And if you want to reach out to me, please feel free to email me at Jesse, Jesse, at mrbray.com. And I hope you all have a blessed day.